Aikwe, Nekna Malita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian, and today I will be doing the Yes Chef book tag. So I do have an October wrap-up coming out, but I wanted a buffer between the September wrap-up and the October wrap-up. I do have a couple of other videos as well for reviews, but those, for some reason, my mind is thinking they belong on Wednesdays and I needed something for Sunday. So here we are. And I feel like the Yes Chef book tag is a fairly relevant tag to do, particularly in November as Thanksgiving is approaching or the holidays are approaching. We don't particularly celebrate Thanksgiving, but we do enjoy having fun with the fall season, the harvest season, particularly as well as the hunting seasons, and being able to come up with like nice, hot and cozy dishes to kind of bring that warmth into our souls. And this is particularly the month where I get really interested in like food nonfictions, whether that's food history or the influence of food on society, or how different our food has become in recent years, etc. So let's go ahead and get started. This tag is created by Bandy's Books, which I'll go ahead and leave their channel as well as the original video down in the description down below if you want to go check them out. First question is, have you ever read a book about or written by a chef? If so, which ones, and did you enjoy it? So the first one that I came across, because I have read quite a handful of like food nonfictions, and I had to go and make sure that the authors of them weren't chefs, and apparently food historians are a slightly different class. So that's interesting in my mind. Didn't know that. So the first one that I found was Kitchen Confidential: Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly by Anthony Bourdain. This is a memoir and biography by Anthony Bourdain. This came out in 2000 and I read it in 2020. This was a couple years after his death. I didn't know who Anthony Bourdain was until he died, and I had been working with a couple of folks within the culinary realm that like thought of him as like an idol, so they were greatly impacted. So it looks like I rated this a 3. However, this was pre not rating memoirs, so I don't rate memoirs anymore, and I couldn't tell you all too much about Kitchen Confidential because this was back in 2020. I know that was like 3 years ago, but still, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened since 2020. But ultimately, I remember thinking that this ultimately intrigued me about Anthony Bourdain, and I think since then I've seen a couple like other things that he's done that I'm intrigued by. So I know he has had a couple of shows where he goes and travels the world and tries different foods, as well as other people that have written books about him, which I'm curious about as well. And I feel like it's like, I don't know if it's because I've read this particular book that I happen to see it a lot more now, or if he's just kind of gaining traction again within the food realm, and so now he's being marketed more. I'm not sure, but I mean, I enjoyed it enough. So yeah, there's that one. And then the other one that I read fairly recently, within the last couple of years as well, was a book of the month add-on, and that is the Tastemakers: 7 Immigrant Women Who Revolutionized Food in America by Mayuk Sen. Mayuk Sen themselves is a food journalist, but this book basically tells of 7 immigrant women who had an impact on the culinary world within America, but didn't necessarily get credit for it, or like America kind of just forgot about them. So we have Chao Yang Bue, Elena Zeliata, Madeline Kaman, Marcella Huzan, Julie Sani, Najmia Batmanjelia, sorry if I pronounced any of these wrong, and Norma Shirley. This one was really interesting just because of how they influenced the culinary world, and I thought it was really intriguing. I actually remember looking at this like a couple days ago and going like, do I want to keep this, and like doing this book tag and remembering like, yes, actually I do want to keep it. I thought it was a really interesting read. Next question is, do you notice food descriptions in books? Why or why not? I do notice food descriptions in books, whether they're good or not. I happen to notice them. I enjoy food, and I enjoy when an author can describe food enough to give me a reaction, whether that is like disgust, or like it makes my mouth water, or makes me realize like, hey, I'm hungry, or makes me want to try something. I think it's really fun. I have had a couple books where the authors have tried to describe food and it kind of just disappoints, and I make note of that. And then I've had other books where I was surprised that the author had descriptions of foods, and it was like, it's a pleasant surprise when they're able to do that and do it well. So I do notice. Question 3, what book have you read that had the best food description? So one that I finished recently, you'll hear more about in my November wrap up, because it was on my November TBR, and that is The Center by Aisha Manazir Siddiqui. This one, we are following a Pakistani woman named Anisa Alahi, who has moved from Pakistan to Britain, and uses her, she knows English and I believe Urdu, and basically she wants to translate great works of literature. However, she's kind of living this mundane life in translating Bollywood films, and feels like she's wasting her potential, and she just kind of feels stuck in life. But when her boyfriend ends up surprising her with being fluent in Urdu, like overnight, she demands that he tell her his secret, and it turns out that the answer is The Center, which is a very secret, invite-only program of sorts that guarantees absolute fluency in any language in just 10 days. So Anisa enrolls and realizes just how restrictive they are. She's stripped of her belongings. She cannot like check the internet, have her phone, or even make eye contact, or talk to any of the other people enrolled for the 10 days that she's there, because it's such a rigorous program. And part of that program is meditating, listening to the language that you are hoping to learn, and eating. And some of the food that she describes sounds really good despite not knowing what they are, because she's occasionally describing Pakistani food, and I have no relevance of what that is necessarily. So, but the way she describes it and the way that like it warms her soul is really fun to me, and so it makes me really curious about food outside the realm of what I'm comfortable in. The next one that I have because I can't have just one answer, is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. In this book, we are following Imani, who is a girl in high school. She is Costa Rican and got pregnant freshman year, and like basically cooking is her meditation. And so I think she's like in her junior or senior year now, but because of how young she got pregnant, and like basically the father is in and out of the child's life, there's this expectation from others that she now has to put her dreams on hold, as well as this kind of stigma that goes with her, that because she got pregnant so young that she's going to make a mistake. So Imani is afraid of following her dreams of becoming a chef, because the kitchen is ultimately where she feels comfortable in and where she can let everything go. And just hearing her description and her inner monologue of, oh, this is the ingredients I need, oh, this recipe would be great if I added this, or like, you know what, if I add this ingredient, this is gonna be what they need. I absolutely love that. I love that meditative state that she was in, and that like cozy, comfy feeling of cooking. And yeah, anyway, yeah, it's a good one. Third book, because of course, that I was actually surprised in was another book of the month pick, and this was one that I had gotten back in 2017 and I've actually been debating on rereading it lately, is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. It's actually been a while since I've read this. We are following Lois, who is a software programmer in San Francisco, and she kind of stumbles upon this little shop, and she is given a sourdough starter when the shop owners like, she goes to the shop fairly frequently, like pretty regularly. She gets their sourdough as well as a spicy soup. And the way it's described sounds so interesting and fun, and it's like I've been craving it ever since I've read it. I've been trying to find a good soup, as well as I've always been curious. Since reading this book, I've always been curious about starting sourdough. So Lois ends up being given a sourdough starter to take care of while these owners of the cafe restaurant go away for a little bit. And when they come back, they kind of just give her a portion of the sourdough starter. Or no, I think they went away for a bit, so she had to figure out how to make sourdough herself. So she starts doing it and starts prepping, and she describing the sourdough starter, and then getting tidbits from the owners of this cafe. I don't know. It was just really interesting and really fun. It's really just kind of odd, but I remember really enjoying it. Okay, so the brothers that own the cafe have to leave, and they give Lois their sourdough starter because they're being deported essentially, and so she has to then figure out, and it's kind of like this experiment. And I think she thought her life was kind of just there, and then she gets the sourdough starter, and it's it brings a different perspective to her life, and she starts questioning everything. So I don't know, I really enjoyed this book, and it's one that I really do want to reread. Question 4: have you ever been inspired by a book, not a cookbook, to prepare a specific food or meal? Yes. This one in particular. I always think of this book during fall, as we enter the fall season, and I start thinking of soup. This is the book that I think of. And particularly this last year, I thought of this book, and I didn't quite make it spicy enough, but I made a roasted pumpkin tomato soup with sourdough grilled cheese that I really enjoyed, and it made me think of this book, and I think that's why I'm really wanting to reread it. My soup turned out pretty good, but it could have been a little spicier. Another book that inspired me at one point, and it's I keep thinking about it every so often. I think I should still have it. I don't think I've gotten rid of it, but I don't really see myself rereading it. It's Heartless by Marissa Meyer. But this is that prequel that Myers did, a retelling of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. We are following her as a teenager, and basically all she wants to do is open a bakery, and she particularly makes these lemon tarts, and the lemon tarts sound so freaking good. They have stuck with me. I haven't read this book in years, and in fact I think this was an Alcrate exclusive that I had back before Alcrate fucked up. I mean, I stopped subscribing to them before that because I didn't like their choices aside from this one, but this was that lemon tart really stuck with me. I kind of just want to reread it just for that. Everything else, I remember everything else about it. I could care less about the romance or the inevitable heartbreak that leads to the Queen of Hearts' demise of sorts. But that lemon tart, I love lemon dessert so much, and it's a bummer because Brad does not. So I don't make them as often as I used to. Particularly, there was always a lemon meringue recipe when my family did do Thanksgiving or Christmas. We don't so much anymore because my grandparents go down south for the winter because it gets too cold up here. So, and of course now our families are kind of doing their small little unit things, so it doesn't but it was my grandpa and my uncle that really loved my lemon meringue pies, because they were tart and sour, but still sweet. So I miss doing that. But those lemon tarts are what I think of, and it also reminds me of I had a manager who would make lemon bars. They were so good, and even though he kept saying like, oh, they're just from a box, they were super good, because he altered the recipe even from the box to give them this nice crumble on top, and it was so good. So that's another one that has stuck with me. So they're really heartless. Question 5, do you have a favorite cookbook? No, but I'm always looking for them. I kind of look at cookbooks like I do with anything else, books and or like bottles of wine, or it's their packaging. We have a couple of cookbooks that I have, but they're just kind of pretty things on the shelf. The cookbook that I do go back to quite often is basically just for a pie crust recipe, just to make sure I get it right. And I have used it so many times for pie crust recipes, particularly that there is like old flour and like bits of pie dough stuck on the pages. And I've used it for years and years and years, and this was actually my mom's cookbook, so it like now opens to that page whenever I forget which one it is. I'm too lazy to go get it. Otherwise I tend to like just look up my recipes online, which I'm always constantly like, I have all these cookbooks, I should be using them. Oh no, there was one cookbook that we have that I actually bought for Brad, but ended up using the recipe myself. But it was a meat eater's cookbook, particularly about how to cook game food. And there was and it looks like this, and it's a stew recipe that I looked at, and I altered it a bit to fit our needs because I don't think it needs nearly that much wine. But basically, like, I used that recipe a couple times, and once I and altered it each time to make it like perfect for us, and basically I've used it ever since. Every time we make stew, that's like my alteration of that recipe is what I use, and it's really good. So that's a good favorite too. Otherwise, I don't have not particularly a favorite cookbook, but I would like to get into. I did buy a Lord of the Rings cookbook this in February of this year, when Brad and I went up to Oregon actually, and I've been meaning to like go through it and like find a recipe that I want to try. We actually started talking about this at work actually, because there's a couple of us with different types of game cookbooks, so like not like game as in animals, but like game as in video games. So like I have my brother actually has a World of Warcraft recipe book that I've cooked once from and kind of failed at, so I haven't really touched it since. But one of my coworkers has I always forget the name of this. It's the one with Nuka-Cola. What is it? I always forget the name of it, but it's this cookbook. And then another coworker has a Skyrim cookbook, and we had mentioned at one point we should do like a game food taste test at work at some point. Question 6 is, if you could share a meal with one author, dead or alive, who would it be? Honestly, right now, how I'm feeling, I would want to share a meal with Robin Wall Kimmerer as well as Cy Montgomery. Robin Wall Kimmerer, if you haven't heard me talk about her before, is a botanist and a professor at, I forget which university, but she wrote one of my favorite books of all time, Braiding Sweetgrass as well as Gathering Moss. And she basically started out as she's Potawatomi, and had always wanted to be a scientist because of the questions that had come to her mind growing up. But when she became a botanist, was told, or as she was becoming a botanist, was told that the questions that she had weren't weren't good enough scientific questions. So she was kind of trained to be a botanist, but then in the midst of her being a botanist, she started putting her Potawatomi teachings within her studies, and now it kind of teaches that way of reciprocity, of being having this give and take relationship with the land and with animals and with particularly plants. And I love her work so much. I've got to hear her speak once for our university, and then particularly during this last semester, we've been kind of reflecting on raiding sweetgrass and watching a couple of her other talks at other universities for my Indigenous ethnobotany class. But I would love to just kind of chat and just have a conversation with her. It's the same with Cy Montgomery. Cy Montgomery is a journalist, but most of her nonfiction books revolve around animals. Sorry, I'm not as familiar with Cy Montgomery as a person, but her works as nonfiction I really enjoy. How to be a good person or a good being. The Soul of an Octopus made me cry at work. And so while Robin Wall-Kimmerer is more of the plant person I would like to talk to, Cy Montgomery is more of the animal person I would like to talk to, in terms of just like feeling connected to the world around me. So I would love to share a meal with them. 7. If you had 24 hours to live and you could eat one meal and read one book, what would you eat and what would you read? My immediate thought is like, I want like a full course meal so that I could have everything and I could have everything that my partner makes. Because I love Brad's cooking so much, and there was this like gif or something where not a gif, a meme of the stick figure man throwing a taco at a girl, and it's like, how to get a girlfriend, like throw tacos at them. And Brad laughed and told me that it wasn't tacos with me, it was grilled cheeses. Yeah, I would just have to have like a full course meal in order, because there's like certain days where I'm feeling one particular way, but if I only had 24 hours, I would like want all of his stuff to be able to remember everything. He does a really good garlic mashed potato that I absolutely love, and of course his steak is great. So like mashed potatoes, but then oh my god, okay. I would need all the potatoes, so like I would need his good ribeye steak, grilled to perfection, seasoned perfectly, with garlic mashed potatoes and gravy, with roasted potatoes that I cook, because I love my roasted potatoes with some sour cream and some horseradish and some sauteed broccoli that Brad does, because otherwise I won't eat it. And then the next meal would be the Parmesan risotto that he does with some grilled seal head. So good. Nachos. I love his pulled pork nachos, and with like homemade queso. I have 24 hours to eat this, right? So I could make this stretch all day. And then, what else? Oh, and his grilled cheese. It would have to end with his grilled cheese. It's like a 3-cheese grilled cheese with garlic sourdough and some tomato with some of my pumpkin, with some of my roasted pumpkin tomato soup that I would have to end with, and I would be reading The Hobbit, in all honesty, because I think, particularly right now, that's all I want to reread aside from sourdough. It tends, for some reason, during this time of year, that's what I want to reread, is The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. because maybe it's because it's towards the end of the year and it about the start of the new year, and so it makes me feel like it's a new adventure, a new beginning. And so maybe if I only had 24 hours to live, I could think of it that way, that it's a new adventure to start. So, and I would definitely want to end this adventure with my honey's cooking and a movie series that we absolutely love with a book that it's adapted from. So, yeah. Yeah, so those are the questions for the Yes Chef book tag. If you have done this book tag, please let me know. Go ahead and link them down in the comments down below. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for supporting. Let's go ahead and do your favorite food emoji down in the comments down below. And if you haven't done this book tag, I consider yourself tagged. And I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading. I will see you in another video very soon. Chew.